Alright, what's up, y'all? We're back, and I think it's time that we answered a very, very serious question. Do you believe in Joe Hendry? Okay, I'll say it again. Do you believe in Joe Hendry? Because believe that if there was ever a good time to believe in Joe Hendry, now is it. And especially given if you were watching this past Tuesday's NXT, and man, I must admit, and this is given the fact that I honestly haven't watched nearly as much TNA as I would have liked to personally, but that's where, as I'll get into a bit more in a minute, this whole working relationship between WWE and TNA is incredibly refreshing. And so much so for a variety of reasons, but before I go into that, I want to go into the original question: do you believe in Joe Hendry? And again, a lot of people seem to be doing that. It was pretty obvious the NXT universe was believing in Joe Hendry. I mean, of course, Booker and Vince were asking each other if they believe in Joe Hendry, and it's so much so that I don't know if I would call them regular appearances, but we're going to see more of him in NXT. Now, of course, there's a lot that's been talked about as far as TNA not necessarily being able to pay out all their contracts, which is really interesting how much of a thing that it is. But this is actually pretty good for both sides, because at least this way what they can do is send Joe Hendry on loan to WWE NXT, as they were able to this past Tuesday, and have him appear for future events and pay him accordingly. And of course, if nothing else, another positive to this is Joe Hendry certainly has a foot in the door with the WWE, as if he ever needed one. But I gotta say, really and truly at this point, it's something that I feel like is what's been needed in this business for forever. And hopefully at some point we can see AEW get to where they might actually be on the right kind of terms, not necessarily with WWE, TNA, but maybe even other companies for that matter, that could continue getting them going in the right direction, not just CMLL or AAA or New Japan, but, you know, I would like to have seen things go better with them in TNA than what they actually had. But as of now, I gotta say, this has definitely been fantastic, and it only gets better. I mean, a few years ago we had Mickie James come through as the Knockouts champion into the Royal Rumble. A couple years later, well, fast forward to the Rumble this year, you got Jordynne Grace come through, and just weeks ago challenged at Roxanne Perez for the NXT Women's Championship at NXT Battleground in Vegas. And of course, Tatum Paxley answered Jordynne Grace's open challenge at Against All Odds, and that was a pretty fantastic match. This is something we need more of, and of course now with AJ Styles looking to perform at Pro Wrestling Noah over in Japan, I have a tough time believing that it's just not going to get better from here, because there's just no way that it doesn't. There's no way that it doesn't at this point, especially when you've got the Wyatt Six as hot as they are right now. Now, I wanted to talk about this particularly real quick because it's just amazing. It's really, really amazing how, on one hand, there was definitely a lot of detractors. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you, just, you know, I think it'd be fair to say that there's a very, very strong likelihood that if you were to have, say, gauged what the differences as far as, like, those that are actually fans of the Wyatt Six or the idea of the Wyatt Six versus those who just, I mean, they're just not as warm to it, for whatever reason it may be. Now, turns out, at least based on what I'm hearing, that the plan for all of this isn't so much to go into any of the supernatural, superhuman stuff, even though they kind of played with a little bit of that element, given that it kind of touches on a lot of the stuff that Bray Wyatt used to do, it is also following the original aspect of what the Wyatts were, which is a cult, essentially. And if nothing else, they sure as hell earned what could be considered a cult following. It's still every bit as strong now, especially given how much support was there with the emergence of the Wyatt Six this past Monday night. And for me, I gotta say, it's been nothing less than a pleasant surprise. I mean, just everything from how they went from basically the whole, like, arena obviously about to go black because you hear the sound effect before Bray's entrance would hit, and then of course everything goes black, and then you see the same stuff again, as I had mentioned, as you did when Bray Wyatt returned a couple of years back. And it's just sad to know that he's no longer with us, but this is a great homage to his legacy, and I'm very, very confident that he's looking down right now. He's smiling, not just down on his brother, but everyone that has anything to do with it, because, you know, you got a lot of folks who were involved with that, specifically Chad Gable. A lot of people were saying Dominic Mysterio, Braun Strowman, and so forth. You know, they're investing in this. It's just like how I had talked about months ago with the Revolution pay-per-view. You know, a lot of, if not every member that was pretty much all hands on deck at Revolution this past March was just completely dedicated to making that the best possible show it could be. Not even so much just because it was Sting, but also they wanted to certainly get the bad taste that was at World's End out of their mouth. I mean, it was just something that they were looking to do. They knocked it right out of the park, and it's the same thing here. Just being knocked right out of the park with this. I can't say enough about this, you know. But we move from that to, you know, not being able to say enough about certain things. Yeah, I actually heard about this yesterday, and it seems, at least to some degree, this might actually have picked up a little bit of steam. I'm not really sure how much so, or to what extent, but of course, as a lot of you are aware, there's an awful lot of talk right now, and it may even be speculated that we can expect Shane McMahon to be a part of All Elite Wrestling. This is really, really wild to me, if I'm being perfectly honest, and I say that largely for the fact that it doesn't have anything to do with his father, really, even though you really do have to take that into consideration, but I'm not really looking to harp on that so much, because Shane probably has as less to do with any of that as really a lot of anybody else, because it feels to me, and maybe this is just my perspective on it, it feels to me that he was kept at an arm's length about that. Especially when it came to that point where he actually went away from WWE and of course came back. But now, he's in a situation, I mean, the last time we saw him, he had the unfortunate mishap at WrestleMania 39, where he hit a leapfrog, or attempted to hit a leapfrog, but came down bad, and I believe it was quadricep that was torn. And now all of a sudden he resurfaces and has interest in joining AEW, which, I'm not gonna lie, initially I was quite disappointed to hear about this, and for a variety of reasons. And it's not even so much just the influx of all of the WWE people that have come along over the recent years, but now we're at a point to where I have to question what exactly this really does for AEW. Now, an extensive conversation took place last night where, you know, my best friend Darren and I, we were talking about it, and the conclusion that we came to is that if not for all of the former WWE names that are there now, i.e. Mercedes, of course. Oh goodness, who am I running try on? Unite or Undisputed Kingdom. And there are a couple of others that were mentioned that just for whatever reason I'm drawing blanks on. But either way, I feel as though, really, if not for that, and of course a potential of Becky Lynch possibly signing with AEW, it just doesn't feel like the timing is right. Just given the immediate issues that, are very heavily discussed about AEW to begin with. Now, if there were something to where you could tell me, outside of the stuff involving former WWE personnel and everything, is there any aspect of Shane McMahon that leads you to believe that he can come in and help alleviate, to some degree, any of these issues? And I can't really say that I would answer yes to that. Now, I take nothing away from him. He's proven himself as an in-ring talent, obviously, and of course, all the other things that he's done. And when he was away from WWE, he did have, and still has, some pretty successful business ventures to his name. That said, however, does that translate to being what AEW needs? And I think that's something that needs to be asked, especially given the fact that a lot of people are of the mindset that this is probably likely to go down. And even more so for the fact that Tony Khan seems to have denied ever meeting Shane McMahon to begin with. So, I don't know. I mean, we'll see where this goes. Honestly, it's a 50-50 bet at best, but y'all know what it is. Let me know what y'all think about it. I mean, could this work? We'll see. Along with that, like, share, and subscribe if you're new and if you enjoyed, and I appreciate y'all rocking with me. I'll get at y'all.